Determining how much acreage is needed for goats depends on your intensity of production and the number of goats and type of goats you want. If you are having goats as pets or purchasing young goats and growing them until they reach market weight, relatively small area is needed if all the feed is going to be purchased. If a less intensive production system is desired, more space is needed. The number of goats per acre will depend on the type of production, meat, milk, and fiber, and the relative quality of the forage. Improved pastures will allow more goats per acre than native range. As a general rule of thumb, you could graze 6 to 8 goats per acre when there's excellent forage. If you want the goats to consume most of their feed as pasture, then the energy requirement of the goats and the energy content of the pasture will dictate how many goats you can graze. The most extensive production system would be that of native rangeland and browse and would require the most acreage. When I was growing up, we had a dairy goat named Coco who thought she was a dog and always wanted to sit in your lap. Picking the type and breed of goat that will be the friendliest is challenging since goats have individual personalities. If you have small children, small goat breeds may be better than larger goat breeds, and females and neuter males are probably friendlier than intact billies. The key will be to socialize the goat at a young age with the family. So no matter what breed of goat you select, you can find a friendly one. Housing goats with cattle provides a great opportunity for co-grazing because cattle and goats have complementary grazing habits. This means they consume different items in the pasture and will improve the pasture over time. As a general rule, 1 to 2 goats can be added per cow. Goats tend to have less stress in a multi-grazing system with cattle because they spend less time being vigilant for predators. Additionally, not all parasites are shared between goats and cows, so they can be grazed together. Pasturing goats with cows allows for a number of grazing strategies, including first-last grazing or creep grazing. This is where you provide the animals with the highest nutrient requirements to graze first, followed by animals with lower nutrient requirements. Or use special gates to allow smaller animals, goats and calves, access to the pasture ahead of the larger cattle. One important factor when grazing goats with cattle is that the perimeter fence has to be enhanced to keep the goats from getting out. How frequently fecal samples are collected to evaluate fecal egg counts will be determined by your production system. After animals are exposed to parasite larvae, it takes approximately 3 weeks before eggs are seen in the feces. It is best to use fecal egg counts to monitor the effectiveness of your parasite treatments by collecting samples the day of treatment and 14 to 15 days later. The general signs of parasite infection are a rough hair coat, diarrhea, depression, poor performance, bottle jaw, and the animals not eating. For the most common internal parasite, Homunculus contortus, or the barber pole worm, the animals develop anemia. Besides doing a blood test, another way to determine anemia is to evaluate the mucous membranes of the lower eyelid and compare them to a FAMACHA eye color chart to determine how anemic the animal is and if treatment is needed. It is ideal to treat only affected animals rather than the whole herd. Additionally, proper sanitation, rotational grazing, and proper nutrition will assist in preventing reinfection. You can be trained on using the FAMACHA system through a number of state extension programs.